Hey, welcome everybody. It's time once again for another episode of Health Talks with Dr. Trin. The one show, maybe the only show that helps you make sense of all the noise and confusion swirling around the issues of health these days and how to lead a healthier life. With the man who's going to lead us on this path today, the Cobra Kai of health himself, Dr. Trin. Welcome, sir.
Good morning. And I am bringing on this morning a very good friend, Dr. Jay Lee. And we have, we kind of hung out for a good number of years, probably at least 10 since Memorial Care launched. And Chief Medical Officer of an awesome nonprofit healthcare organization called Selves, and wanted to just learn more about what you guys are doing and just kind of chit chat and see what's going on with the pandemic and what Selves has been doing as well.
And earlier he was sharing with us, he was standing here kind of in this this Zen pose here. That's why we say look like that. What was the Cobra Kai, the guy who fights Mr. Miyagi and everything here? He had that kind of look to him here. So he must be doing battle out there.
I was going to say, I do have a black belt, so...
Oh, does he? Okay, all right. So he has that kind of, stance to him here today. So tell us what Share Ourselves do. Share with us what Share Ourselves does.
Yeah, excellent. So Share Ourselves, we actually just celebrated our 50th anniversary last year. And it started out as an organization really focused on social services as people in Orange County came to realize that there are pockets of people and communities that are in great need. And so, it began as simply as finding ways to supply children with backpacks for schools, as simple as putting together food bags for people who, we didn't call it food insecurity back then, we called it hunger. But people who
simpler times
were experiencing food insecurity, I think we're able to get connected. And then over the years, we've layered in other services. So, for example, medical, dental, behavioral health, and then social services continue to expand beyond sort of these event-based, service-oriented events. But we have a full-time food pantry. We offer rent assistance. Clients are connected with housing agencies and are placed in permanent housing. So there's a whole range of things that we do for the communities and the zip codes that we service. And as I said, we've managed to persist for 50 years. And obviously, the backdrop of the pandemic in this past year, I think, really highlighted not only our legacy, but I think presented us with an opportunity to really see what we could do in the next 50 years, right? Because what has come about, I believe, that we're continuing to see is that there's increasing need because of the devastating economic impacts that coronavirus is bringing upon people.
Can I ask a question here? I'm sure the audience will ask many questions here. Why and when and where did this organization start? What prompted this whole thing here?
Yeah, so it was a group of folks who were part of the same Bible study. And what they saw was, essentially seeing with their own eyes and hearing about, for lack of a better way of putting it, inequity and poverty right in their backyard. And so they felt compelled to do something. And so it was a very grassroots beginning. And really, I would say up until maybe about 10 years ago, we were a one clinic, single site shop and largely due to the Affordable Care Act and a decision strategically to become a federally qualified health center or community health center, we've been able to expand beyond 1967, which is the Costa Mesa zip code. And so now we do have services in Anaheim, in Santa Ana, in Costa Mesa, Newport Beach, and as well as in Mission Viejo.
So do you have actual facilities there, or just, I don't know, what do you offer in those places? A hotline that people can call, or can I walk into all the other physical places? I can go to all those spaces?
Correct, yes. So there are, it depends on the location, but Costa Mesa is the one area where we offer all of the services. And then our other sites may include medical and dental, or medical only. The Anaheim site's actually is a county-run shelter, so it's a shelter site, and then we do have a mobile unit. I forgot to mention that. So there are places that are not brick and mortar that we go to that we're able to access by virtue of having a mobile RV. I think it's a 40 or 42-foot vessel that I learned how to drive. So
it's a starship. It's a starship that kind of shows up at your door here, right?
Yeah, you know, the big wheel. You know, trying to turn it, honking on the horn.
What's provided inside that mobile unit?
So at the moment, we provide medical services. So you know, it's set up essentially like a 2-room medical clinic. So we've got tables that fold back. We've not yet been able to set things up for this, but we could do pap smears and other office procedures, skin biopsies, those kinds of things there. But by and large, it's consultation, you know, office consultation-based medicine. And then we usually do bring eligibility and case management services and also BH, behavioral health services along with us. And so if somebody needs to be navigated to, say, enroll in health insurance, we can help them get there. And then from there, they can actually be navigated to dental. We have 2 dental offices or connected with some of our community partners.
So the big question I have is, who do you serve and who pays for it?
Yeah, so I didn't hear the second part of the question. I'm sorry.
Who pays for it? How do, you know, who are you serving? How do I get this service? Who qualifies? And then who pays for all this?
Yeah, maybe I'll start with the second piece, and then we can dive deep on who we do service. So by virtue of being a federally qualified health center, we do have contracts with the feds to operate as an FQHC, and therefore are kind of held to a standard, you know, in terms of delivery of service, et cetera. And so there's revenue from that. There's also revenue from our health plan contracts, and that includes not just the rendering of services, but also for quality metrics. So as we do better with the data and the quality of care that we provide and report to the health plans, we do get incentive payments for the quality that we do provide. And then I would say that, you know, that is a pretty decent stream, but you know, there's always gaps. And so we do have donors who you know, are able to donate through our foundation, and you know, we're blessed to have very generous people here in Orange County who believe in our mission and continue to support us. And so things like the backpack program that I mentioned earlier, things like what we call Adopt a Family, which is Christmas time gift giving on behalf of families. Things like we have a wild and crazy taco night most springs when there's not coronavirus. Where
that's where Dr. Trin hangs out. He goes to the wild and crazy taco night. I know that.
The tongue out crazy wild and
exactly.
taco night.
Exactly. Stick your tongue out and we put a taco on it.
Exactly. so the donors certainly help as well in terms of plugging those gaps. And then we do apply for grants to help us innovate. For example, we recently received a grant for trying and testing remote monitoring devices for patients with chronic disease.
Wow.
So they can start to beam in data from home to let us know how their blood pressure is doing or how their blood glucose may be as well. Now, in terms of the patients that we serve, there are people like you and I, and they're people who, for better or for worse, are in situations where their economic situation is such that they're not able to afford paying for a premium. In many cases, we do have patients who are at risk for becoming homeless or are in fact people experiencing homelessness. And then, we have multiple families. We have generations of families who have been kind of stuck, for better or for worse, again, in a certain income bracket. And, our job really is to serve people irrespective of their ability to pay, irrespective of country of origin, irrespective of gender identity. It's really to serve everyone and to be as non-judgmental as we're able to. Each of us individually has prejudices, but as an organization, together we work to overcome that. And it's been, as I mentioned, it's been beautiful in that we have patients that have seen us for years, decades. And then we also have some long-standing employees. Our longest-standing employee has actually been with us for 30 years.
Wow.
And comes from the community. So it's really about, again, the grassroots of caring for people right in our backyard.
And my last procedural question, and then I'll let Dr. Trin come in and tell us some of the personal stories here, but I just am curious, how do people find you? How do they even know this exists? How do they come to you?
Yeah. So there's, believe it or not, what was that old supermarket chain, Alpha Beta? Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Tell a friend, right? So there's a lot of word of mouth that comes about from people in the communities that we serve. We're also, I was surprised to hear this, and actually very proud to hear this, is that when you dial 211 for information in the county of Orange, I believe we're the number 2 listed social services agency in 211. And we also, I think, over the years have worked to really develop a strong relationship with our local elected officials, so that when they receive calls from constituents, they know that we're a resource and that we can be a trusted source for providing care for patients. And so in all those ways, we do provide care. I would also say that, the way health plans work, sometimes people are automatically assigned to us, and then they find us by accident because by virtue of a computer algorithm that's connected them with us. But I would say by and large, those folks, and I hope this is true at least 99% of the time, if not 100% of the time, that they're pleasantly surprised to discover that we're here to serve them.
What do you think, Dr. Trin? Are they doing good work out there?
They're doing awesome work, especially when you have an awesome leader like Jay. Jay, how do people? Are you guys taking volunteers during this pandemic, or if somebody wanted to volunteer and participate with Share Ourselves?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So, and maybe I'll go a little bit further upstream there. So I started in the organization on March 2nd, which was 11 days before Friday, the March 13th, when the governor began the stay-at-home order. And I was in the midst of doing online onboarding modules and these sorts of things, and quickly had to pivot because we really wanted to ensure that we had a low COVID environment. And so what that meant was really quickly pivoting to physical distancing within the clinic, which normally are packed full of people, but how do we create that practicing safe six, let's call it. And then the other thing was being able to procure enough masks and face shields and gowns and gloves and hand sanitizer, all of the above. Part of the calculus was figuring out how to continue our volunteer services, given that the vast majority of our volunteers are people at risk, people over the age of 65, people with chronic medical issues. And for a period of time, we actually really had to encourage people to stay at home for their safety because of everything that was going on. We've since found opportunities for people to be able to do things from home or do things from a distance. And then we've also discovered a new group of people who aren't in those high-risk categories, who really stepped up and come in to help, because we require a certain amount of people power to be able to fill bags and to move those bags to the front and to distribute those bags at the food pantry, for example. So there are ample opportunities, both on an ongoing relational basis, and then there are opportunities to provide service on a one-off basis. I mentioned some of those events. And as a really good example, I was able to engage my children in something called Family Service Night, which usually is an on-site event where we build care packages for people experiencing homelessness. And what we did this year was we pivoted to an online virtual event where everyone was putting together those kits in the comfort of their homes. But in a weird way, we were actually able to reach many more people because we weren't restricted by space. And so we had over 300 families that participated in that. But there are many ways to get involved, and it just depends on what your bandwidth is. And so if you're somebody who has a little bit of time to give every week, perfect. If you're somebody who has a little bit of time to give every once in a while, perfect. If you want to serve on our board, there's a variety of different ways for people to get involved.
So let's give them a website. Let's start with that. We'll do it a couple times throughout the morning here. How do people find you? How do people join you? How do they support you?
So it's www.shareourselves.org. O-R-G. Share
Ourselves. Is that 3 words or 2 words? Share Ourselves or Ourselves, 1 word? I guess when it's all
in the URL, it's one word.
Right. But if they looked it up online, if they just typed it into Google, it would be 3 words?
It would be 3 words, correct.
Share Ourselves. Okay. All right. Yeah. Well, share some stories with us. Tell us, you told us what you do. Paint a picture for me. Put it in real life. Tell me about somebody you helped here.
Oh, you know what? We have in Tungout, we have three high school chapters now, and so we have 3 groups of high schoolers in 3 separate Tungout clubs who are looking for opportunities and would love to hook up with you guys.
There you go. We'll get you some young people in there. Yeah. But I want to hear a story. Tell me a story of somebody you helped. Somebody put it in human terms here. Show me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So even though I have a title and I quote unquote I'm in the C-suite, I do continue to see patients, and actually one of my passions is the mobile work that we do. And it's perfect timing because this is somebody that I saw last night in our clinic. But this is a gentleman who, before the pandemic, was on slate to receive a new heart valve, and but unfortunately was experiencing homelessness, and so the surgeon didn't feel comfortable doing the surgery if we didn't know where he was going to go after the surgery. And again, in a weird way, because of the pandemic, there was some opportunity for us to find something at least temporary for this individual during the pre and post period of their surgery. And as luck would have it, there was something called Project Room Key here in the state of California, wherein people who were at high medical risk were temporarily placed in housing. And the housing, what consisted of, and it worked out really nicely, is motels that otherwise were laying fallow because of the pandemic. Mm-hmm. And so remarkably, this individual was able to leave the light on, so to speak, because it was a Motel 6, and have a place to stay before and after the surgery. And, in that same facility, there was, a woman who was pregnant, waiting to deliver her baby, and there were others with other medical issues. And at one point, sometime immediately after surgery, he had said to me and kind of was reflecting on where he was, because that's really important to give people time to express themselves and emote, because we're not constrained by a 15-minute visit out in the field, right? So, what he said was, this literally saved my life. And he was full of gratitude, right? Full of heart, right?
Full of heart, yeah, no pun intended. So you paint a picture. Intended. There's something boy, am I just stupid here? And I'm just, you think of homeless people, you think of them, all sorts of negative things here. Some of them are just sad people that fell on hard times. Some of them are people with mental illness that we don't know what to do with, and we just turn them loose. Many are drug and alcohol related, I'm sure. And some, I guess, just think this is it. That's all they're going to do or whatever. It's a wide range of people here. But I don't think of them as having people problems. A heart valve needs to be replaced. A hip needs to be replaced. And if they have surgery needs, one, where do they go and how do they pay for it? And two, what you just really, I can't get out of my head, what do they do after the surgery? The hospital only keeps them for a couple of days, and then you got to go home to recover. What if there's no home to go home to? You're going to recover under a tree in the back of a trash bin somewhere?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that's really where, for me, there's a real opportunity for not just medical folks, but I think city councils and other government agencies to really think about how to provide care for people. This is, you're right, it's not a homogenous group of individuals. It's a very diverse group of people and each has their story. Right. Each is not afflicted by the same ailments, but the one thing that brings them together is the fact that they do not have a consistent roof over their head.
I would love to have you come back sometime with some people that you've served and have them tell their story. Give them a voice, because they're voiceless. Yeah. They're invisible. I don't see them. I've said this so many times on this show and others, that part of the problem with homelessness is it's not in my face. I don't see it. They're behind the building. They're in the bushes. They're down in the flood channels. I don't go down there. I don't choose to see them, and I don't look. I drive around, and I don't see the problem, so it doesn't hit me in the face here. And I so often say I'd love to hear their story. I think it would help us understand the situation better and maybe motivate us to do more with it.
These
absolutely.
When we use the word homeless people, there's always this connotation that's always like so negative.
Yeah.
There's, we think of drugs and crimes and things of that sort.
All things I listed. Yeah, right. Exactly. It's not a healthy group of people here. Right.
But these are folks. They're not homeless people. These are just folks without homes. And I would love to bring them on here on Thursdays. I would. Jay, do you think you can find some volunteers who will be interested in coming on Thursdays?
I think that would be very powerful for your audience to hear stories. And again, I think there's sort of as I'm thinking about how to convince people to get the COVID vaccine, for example, because there's vaccine hesitancy, I could throw a bunch of data at somebody.
Yeah, right.
With numbers and the science and all this stuff, but frankly, what will happen is people's eyes will glaze over. They me-go or they he-go. My eyes glaze over or people's eyes glaze over.
That's what happens with every one of these health problems. You tell me the stats and the statistics, and I go, yeah. There's 80 million people dying in Africa, and there are 80 million people homeless, and blah 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 blah. And it's just overload, and it doesn't mean anything to me.
Yeah, but the stories, what it does is it creates this relatability.
Yes.
It creates, I could see myself in that position, and again, I think because of COVID and because of its indiscriminate attack on people's immune systems, no one is immune to the impacts of this. Rich, poor,
right,
black, white, Asian, Latino, it doesn't matter. Woman, man, we've just seen, indiscriminate spread of this. Now, there are some structural things within society that have resulted in certain communities being afflicted more than others, but from a biological perspective, this virus doesn't care who you are. And so I agree. I think we're at a moment historically, I think, as a society where we're, for lack of a better way of putting it, vulnerable and willing, maybe more willing to hear the story of quote unquote others, the other.
It's hard to hate. It's hard to hate somebody if you hear their story. I can talk about them, those people, all day long. But when those or them people are me or somebody I've met, it's hard for me. Well, not him, not her. Come on, everybody else. Yeah, I don't like them, but that person, I think, and because they're so invisible, I think it adds to the difficulty helping them. We don't know who they are. We don't choose to hear. We don't listen to them, and they can't communicate with us. And if more we could do that, I'll tell you the power of stories. This is just me getting on my soapbox for a second. I'm a storyteller by nature. I'm Irish by heritage, and I've been doing this radio thing for 7 years, and many years of radio before that. Power of story is threefold. One, it's what you said. It makes it relatable. Oh, now I can connect with them. I can see myself in them. The second thing is it goes into your brain, I'm convinced, a different way. I can't prove this, but I think that stories get embedded to your brain differently than stats do. Somehow it's easier to grasp it and get it and remember it. And the third is the most powerful for what you're trying to do. I'm going to share it. If you tell me a touching story, I'm going to tell somebody today, wow, I heard the most amazing story here. And that's how we pass stories on from one to the next here. I think that's the power. And I've said this to Sue Parks has been on the show a couple of times from United Way. They've got a big campaign to end homelessness, and others who've talked about this in great detail. I say, quit telling me the numbers. Share the stories. Don't tell me what you're doing. Yeah. Bring the people on and let them tell it in their own words, who you're helping and what you're doing. Sure. Nobody ever does that. Sure. I don't know why. Yeah,
I hear you. It's part of the reason why we do the work that we do is in a way, there's the medical piece, so there's the technical clicking in the chart and typing what we've done, et cetera. But I would say equally important is the bearing witness to what people are experiencing and how they're experiencing it.
And let them tell the story. Don't tell it for them. Let them tell. I mean, yes, part of it is your job is to advocate and tell people and make us aware of it. You're here today and everywhere you can be to do this. I get it. But I would get it more if I heard it straight from them. That's my theory.
It's true. It's absolutely true.
So what do you think, audience? Would you like to, would people ask them questions? How did you get homeless? Why do you stay homeless? Can't you get out of this? How do they help you? I mean, could we have a dialogue with homeless people here?
Yeah. Dan Daly says we need to hear more from homeless folks to gain more knowledge and understanding of their experience on Facebook.
Society reacts to those it hears from. The angry, the loud, noisy people, the rich and wealthy people, the people who organize and advocate. homeless and people like that are alone and unconnected to us and to anybody else, and so they slip through the cracks, and we don't see them and hear from them, and therefore don't think of them. I mean, I applaud you, the people who wake up and say, recognize the problem, and you're always trying to say, wake up and see it more. But I think that it's partly that they can't tell their own stories. They're mute.
It's being God's hands and feet, Jay.
And voice.
And voice. Being God's hands and feet, yeah. Although you look more like Buddha.
He does a little bit. He's got that kind of Zen presence to him here.
Yeah.
What?
So with the holidays, yes, I've definitely got a much rounder belly. That's for sure.
I'm going to put you both on the spot here a little bit, and I know you're going to go, aw shucks, and you don't want to have this here, but my image of modern doctors today is, I'm sorry, money, making money. It costs a lot of money to go to medical school. I got to get out and pay that bill back. I got a chance to make a lot of money, and there's nothing wrong with making money for myself and my family here. I know you go into medicine to help, but somewhere along the way it becomes about the practice and building your practice and selling your practice and making money and paying back the loans, and how many people, and I get a practice manager, and how many people can I get in and get out in an efficient manner. It becomes a factory. And I just wonder, when I see two doctors here, you could both be making a ton of money. Why are you doing this?
Well, I like to say it always boils down to what you wrote about in your personal statement. And what a personal statement is it's an essay that you write, kind of declaring to the world, and specifically to the medical schools that you've applied to, or the residency programs that you've applied to, why you want to do what you are doing. And I can tell you, as somebody who used to work in a residency program, no one in their right mind would write, I want to become a physician because I want to make money, and I want to line my pockets. Because if someone wrote that in their personal statement, they would not get into the school or the program.
Right.
Invariably, the structure of most of these personal statements is a variation on the following. Let me tell you an anecdote about a patient I took care of during a volunteering situation who was in dire straits. And because I was a student, or because I had some time, I was able to listen to this person's story, and let me share with you how that made an impact on me in my decision to pursue a career in medicine. And therefore, this is why I chose family medicine or internal medicine or whatever it might be. Mm-hmm. And it's really important because it's the one thing that isn't measured. Because we have all these test scores, etc.,
right,
that the schools and the programs evaluate you on. But it's the one thing that's not measurable, but it's immeasurably important because it tells your own story. It's your origin story of why you want to be quote unquote heroic,
right,
in what you do. If we kept everyone accountable to what they put in their personal statement, if there was a system to do that,
to measure it, frankly, to monitor it, to make it, track it, yeah,
right, there would probably be more people oriented like Dr. Trin and I in healthcare. Now, I do think that there was a big shift, and we could probably spend hours on this, a big shift in the 80s and 90s in terms of the corporatization of medicine that I think has largely led to some of what you're experiencing.
Right.
But there are, I would say there's generations of doctors that are coming in for the right reasons, but they've just been whittled down and forced into a box. And I would say part of what I'm trying to do with my career is A, try to stick with the blueprint, but B, honestly, just to say, yes, I understand what the constraints of the system are, but how do we blow that up? How do we get outside the four walls of the clinic and do what we need to do for people, because that's what they need. If someone needs a COVID test out in the field, I'm going to go out and try to figure out how to make that happen, and I have. I mean, it's a tricky wicket, if you will, and in a weird way, it actually is exercising not just the science part of my brain, the creative part of my brain is like firing like mad because we're trying to figure out ways to provide care for patients that fit within a box to a degree, but then also there's lots of instances where we have to think differently about how we approach patient care.
And again, I don't want to sound socialistic or anything. There's nothing with money. I hope you guys make a ton of money, and I hope you're very well compensated because you put many years and effort into this. It's a hard profession to get into. It takes a lot of time and effort to get there. No thing. But what I'm talking about is sort of that excessive when it goes beyond just a well-compensated position for a well-earned role is, and it suddenly turns into that. That's not the purpose anymore, helping people. It's turning it into a factory. It's turning it into a machine. And it's making, I don't know, it just seems like an exorbitant amount of money here. Yeah, that becomes the motivation.
I still do believe that anyone who's gone through medical training, ultimately what they want to be able to do is to serve people. Mm-hmm. And I think unfortunately, I think what's happened is these larger structures have, for lack of, have caused moral injury for doctors that otherwise want to do the right thing because they're told, the insurance company is not going to cover that.
Exactly.
Or
no time. Next one's got to come in. You only get paid for 5 minutes here. We got to move them out, move them through. Yeah, can't do anything else. I'll give you a perfect example. This has nothing to do with medicine, but my wife was in banking for many years, 20, 30 years, and she was a branch manager for a big bank and some other things. And she was coming up. She had a real crisis. I won't name the bank, but she was at one of the biggest banks, which she finally left because she was so horrified at what she was seeing there. And the banks didn't differentiate much. They all pretty much the same price, the same products, the same everything. And where they differentiated themselves was service. So this little old lady used to come in. She had a bunch of money in the bank, and she was going blind. And she was all alone. And so she used to come in and ask one of the tellers or one of the staff to help her go through her bills. They were happy to do it. And finally, my wife was doing this one day, and her supervisor boss came in and said, "What are you doing? We've helped this lady for years. Look, she's a good customer, and we want to hold on to her, and she needs help and everything else. There's an 800 number for that. We don't have time. Come on, back on the clock. We gotta get moving through here." And in so many cases, it was like that. They were told to curtail customer service. That can be handled more efficiently and quicker and faster somewhere else. Time's up. Move on. And that whole mentality shifted. Banks suddenly went to selling products instead of offering services. And I feel medicine has moved in that same way. It's about sales. It's not about service. And I think that does a disservice to everybody here. I don't think medicine is necessarily any more than education is or something. It should be all about just how much you make money and how quickly you can do it here. Maybe that's part of it. I don't want it to be inefficient, but I just am uncomfortable the more it becomes corporatization and a factory. That's the way I picture it.
Yeah, we're really trying to make it relational.
Right.
And as I mentioned, I think we've got generations of families that we served, and that relationship is based in trust. And it's been fascinating for me in the pandemic that we have individuals who otherwise experience what I would call, concierge level service, and then are surprised to find that we're aiming to do something very similar for people who are, experiencing life challenges. And, the approach to the work is that we want to build that trust and build that relationship. And, the patient I mentioned earlier, one of the things he said to me last night when I was seeing him was, "Man, I can just shoot the breeze with you." He used a different word. But he was like, "Just shoot the breeze with you." And I said, "Well, yeah. I mean, it's because it's important to me to hear what's going on in your life, because I'm not going to be able to figure out everything in one visit, but we can figure out a lot over a period of time."
And don't you think I'm going to answer, Mike. I'm going to set it up in a way you can only answer it one way. But don't you think we get better quality health care the more time you're allowed to spend with a patient? It always angered me, my late mother and father and aunt, with all these multiplying problems through the years, and the doctors gave them less and less time. They were in and out in a couple minutes. I can't help you. I don't know what I'm going to do. And it was just, we got 400 other patients waiting outside. And it was just, it felt to the point my dad used to always say he wanted to throw himself against the door and say, wait, can't I just, and they had trouble explaining it quickly as they got older. Let me tell you what's going on. Don't you want to hear everything? No, I don't want to hear everything anymore. I don't have all that time anymore. We just start tuning them out, and to the point where you're making snap decisions about life and death issues. I just wonder if doctors don't make mistakes more and more in that.
Yeah. So there's actually data to support this. That there are 4 C's, the letter C, that make a huge difference in terms of quality and its impact on morbidity and mortality. Okay. Number 1, it's first contact care. So if I'm thinking about, oh, I've got a problem, I'm not going straight to the urgent care or the emergency room. I'm going to call my primary care doctor first because I need some guidance, right? Number 2, continuity. So that it definitely has to be the relationship. So as care is more continuous, I can walk into a room, just make eye contact with a patient, and I'll know whether they're feeling good or not. True story. I had students with me for many years, and a student came to report, hey, patient's feeling great, right? And everything's been fine. And I walk in, I make eye contact, the patient starts to cry. Yeah. And the student's like, oh my God, I didn't get that story. And I was like, it's okay. This is the power of continuity, right? Mm-hmm. Number 3 is it's comprehensive, right? I don't want a left pinkyologist when really what I want to do is actually look at you as a whole person, right?
Yes.
And
Amen
what
to
we
that.
do to the left pinky has to matter for the whole body, right? And then the 4th is really, it's that, ability to coordinate care well. And, part of my job, not just from a task perspective, but I would say morally and ethically, is to extract from the system that which my patient needs and whatever effort it takes. And sadly, it's taken more and more effort to extract that from the system over the years. But ultimately, if I were to describe to somebody what I do without saying what I do, that's what I would say, is that my job is to coordinate and extract and get what my patients need out of the system to stay healthy or to keep, reduce harm.
And in so many cases, there isn't a holistic approach. It's specialization. We live in a world of left pinkyologists. And then you say, well, all right, take this pill or do this or whatever. Well, what about these other problems? How's that going to impact that? I don't know. I'm the left pinkyologist. I can tell you lots of horror stories that would roll your eyes back. Dealing with my mom, my dad, my aunt as they got older and got complicated issues, health issues here, life-threatening complications, cancers and things and stuff. And in many cases, the doctor would say to me, like they'd go into the hospital or they'd go see somebody else, and the doctor would ask me, so what did he say? What did the doctor tell them? I'm like, you're asking me? My dad just had a stroke and you're asking me something? Why don't you talk to the doctor? There's no coordination. There's no communication or cooperation here. One hand doesn't know what the other hand is doing. And there was supposed to be somebody overseeing all this stuff. I can tell you for a fact that a month after my dad died, one of his primary care doctors called him up for his regular appointment. I said, you didn't even know he died?
Oh, man.
Wow.
Yeah, that's awful.
You're supposed to be the guy in charge, and nobody told you he died? I was just horrified. But I think that a lot of that is we're trying to turn this into a factory, into a machine, and therefore we're pushing out efficiency beyond the point where it's effective.
Yeah, well, I think that there is right now growing recognition of this, and definitely physicians and other clinicians are beginning to push back on the idea. As I mentioned, that concept of moral injury that many of us have experienced.
Moral injury. I'm going to use that one. I like that term. Yeah, right.
Yeah. And if it's bad for the patient, it's bad for the doctor. I'll be honest. So and many of us have been able to, I would say, build careers that allow us to try to respect the principles that were reflected in the personal statement, but many have not. I've also not been able to do that. And so my wish for the system is that as more and more people get a card to enter, to be able to enter the system,
right.
That we look at properly allocating resources so that we're producing the right kinds of doctors for the right kind of health that we need as a country.
And again, if it's less effective, if we've turned it into such a quick process, and we don't have the time or ability to coordinate and consult and spend the time necessary to figure out the problem, then doesn't that efficiency get wiped out? The cost savings from that efficiency get wiped out when the people just stay sick and keep coming back because nobody really figured out what the problem was. It was too hard, took much time. They didn't have enough continuous connection with the patient and everything here. Don't they just get sick again?
Our healthcare system has traditionally been designed to take care of sickness and illness,
right,
as opposed to preventing.
Right, it's a drive-through. When you got a cold, come and get the thing. We'll give you the shot, give you the pill. You break a leg, we'll fix it, and you send you back out.
Yeah.
It's a temporary fix, not a luck. Somebody told me once in Asian countries, if you get sick, your doctor gets fired. He's failed. Here, the doctor's like, he's waiting for you to get sick. He's just, I'm here. When you get sick, come and see me. And if then, I never go see him. I never go see him unless I get sick. It's just a service to help me get through this. It's a house cleaning service. My house gets dirty, come fix it. My health fails, come fix it. And then I'll call you the next time I need you.
Well, I would say at places like Selves, part of what we're trying to do is stave off illness. We do a lot of screenings, we do vaccinations. And then I think there's other factors outside of the four walls that, really contribute to health. So things like community safety, things like food insecurity, things like secure housing. All these things matter. Like I said, with the patient with the heart valve, we can't fix the heart valve if the patient doesn't have a roof over his head, right? And so if we weren't in the middle of a pandemic, I don't know that we would have been able to find housing for this.
Yeah, and
the story being different.
And what you said is so true, that if you can't solve these problems independent of one another. You mentioned very casually what we all know to be true, is that some communities, poor communities, are more at risk from COVID because they got poor health, poor diets, poor living conditions. They're more crowded together. They're more stressed. They have worse diets. They don't eat as well. They've suffer from diabetes and other overweight or things or something, all these other problems that go with eating fast food and junk food and all that stuff, all living off of that kind of stuff, cheap food, bad food, all of that puts them at higher risk. And then we wonder why,
And I think the narrative, at least publicly, is that, it's a personal responsibility issue. And I'll be honest with you, in hearing people's stories, it rarely is due to somebody not working hard. Most people that we're serving are holding 2, sometimes even 3 jobs, working 80 hours a week, trying to make ends meet so they can pay rent and put food on the table. It's very rare that I have people who are basically sitting back waiting for the state to care for them, et cetera. 99% of the time, it's somebody who's straight up, getting to work and doing their best. And with COVID, it's been, again, I think part of the reason why there's been this disproportionate impact on certain zip codes here in Orange County. It's that these are folks that work in essential positions, right?
Yeah,
they work in supermarkets, they work in a food industry. And, employers have provided some measures, but ultimately they're worried about the transaction, about, keeping that margin or maintaining it. And then those folks then, my patients, our clients, are then going back to multiple generation living situations where, if they get COVID from one of their workmates, they're bringing it home, and then the entire family gets COVID.
Yeah, because grandpa and grandma live with you, and everybody else. It's an extended family in a tight space, right?
Yeah, whereas in Orange County right now, I mean, we're seeing 14, 15% across the county. In the communities where we're serving, we're seeing closer to 24, 25% positivity rates. Wow. So, it's a significant amount more. So 1 in 4 basically is getting COVID.
All the more reason we need to hear from these people, because I suffer from the same thing. Sometimes I think, oh, they're just lazy. They're just sitting there eating Doritos on the thing on my dime here, and get off your butt and go get a job and go do something. I've fell into those traps. And there might be some of them that do that. I'm sure there are, but I don't know who they are. Really don't know, because I don't know any of them. When's the last time? Dr. Trin probably has. Does anybody on this line? I've never talked to a homeless person. I've never met a homeless person. I've never heard from a homeless person. I've judged them, but I don't know any. I've never even seen any. I mean, I've seen them over there somewhere, and I walk around them, but I don't talk to them.
We need to bring them on OC Talk Radio.
We'll work to make that happen, for sure.
I'd love to see what would happen here. And would they be angry with us for not hearing, or we're happy to tell their story? I don't know. Are they going to unload on us and say, "You dirty people, you're not paying attention," or are they just going to tell us the story? I don't know. I have no conditions. They can do whatever they want to do, but I'd love to. I don't know what. I'd be an interesting interaction. I don't know how they'd feel, and I don't know how we'd listen and react. But I think it's something that should happen.
It needs to.
Yeah.
Well, let's commit to making that happen here in the near future. I like the idea of having people tell their own story. So I'm definitely.
And hopefully they're open to us asking them some questions, and they can vent and share some of their frustrations or whatever. I mean, hopefully we can have a real dialogue. They don't have to sugarcoat it. They don't have to be. Just tell us for real what's going on, where you're at, and let's ask questions. How did you get there? Why are you there? What can we do to help? How do you get out of it? Is it helpless? Is it hopeless? Is it whatever? I don't know. All right. Sorry to get so heavy and serious here, but you're doing serious work here, and I just would love to seriously know more about it.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Yeah, no, this has been wonderful to come on and Paul, to meet you, and Dr. Trin to see your smiling face, albeit virtually. But I think this show this episode is an example of how important those connections are, because it was I think on the fly, Young texted me and he said, "Hey, I'm doing this program. Would you be willing to come on and share a little bit about what you do?" And I think part of really what we want to do is make sure people know that we exist and that we're trying our best to do some good work here. And this is, I'll be honest, like I as somebody who grew up in Los Angeles, I had my own preconceived notions about what Orange County was about.
Right.
Before I moved here.
Right. Behind the orange curtain. You came down behind the orange curtain here. This is,
As a child of the 70s and 80s, I was only regaled of stories of Orange County. But, the truth is, there are really, really good people here in Orange County that, and some who had some degree of privilege. But, I think by and large, what we realize is that this is not the quote unquote the OC, like that old show.
Right.
It really is a diverse community, and frankly, it's sort of interesting that we're the 6th largest county in the United States, and we do not have a county hospital.
I didn't know that.
So
I guess I didn't know that.
Which blows me away. So in essence, community health centers like ours are really the place for people to go, and then otherwise, it's sort of if people need to be hospitalized and whatnot, it ends up being to some of the larger entities that are around. So mercifully, we have folks, again, that have that parking permit, so to speak, of the insurance cards now for the past 10 years. But really, I think what we have an opportunity here in the county to do is to build these networks so that we can continue to strengthen the safety net. And when we focus on strengthening the safety net, we actually make it better for everybody, because then we reduce illness, we reduce poverty, we reduce suffering, and it does make it better, I think, really for everyone, not just for the people that we're serving.
So maybe we'll do a spin-off show and we'll call it The Real People of Orange County, not just the rich housewives of Orange County, but the real people of Orange County. And let's talk to the real people that are out there, because I don't think we really know who's in our midst here. One of your guests here, one of your people said, and I appreciate you coming forward and saying this, she says, my nephew is homeless in Oregon. It's because he's a drug addict. You know, there are lots of people that probably do, if we come out of the shadows and admit it, know who some of these people are. There was something in, I think, San Clemente a year or two ago, a group discovered that, I may be making this up or exaggerating, but he was like the high school football hero or somebody. He was somebody that everybody knew in high school and was shocked to hear that he'd fallen into homelessness here. I think we'd all be shocked to find out who some of these people are and how they got there. And I think we'd be more apt to help and open our hearts and support what you guys are doing, not just because of the need that's there, but because we see ourselves in them. We become, they're not somebody else other than us.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay, well, that's all I can do for today here. I thank you guys for coming on. Give us the website one more time.
www.shareourselves.org.
Share ourselves. All right. I hope you're going to come back and share some stories of ourselves here in the coming episodes of Health Talks with Dr. Trin. Take us out, Dr. Trin.
All right, guys. Thanks so much, Jay. I still got a nose ring for you sometimes, but you know, a different discussion. Different discussion. So.
Bring it on, man. Bring it on.
All right. You've been listening to another great example of why you should tune in each and every week.
You are
to Health Talks here with Dr. Trin, right here in Orange County's only community radio station, OCTalkRadio.net.